Hi, everybody. My name's Shamash, author of Mindfulness for Dummies, and I've been kindly invited by the organization that celebrates Values Day to share some reflections every day for the whole month of October, reflecting on a different value. So, Values Day is actually on the 15th of October, but they've decided to why not spend the whole month celebrating values. So, I believe they've got a website and you can follow the other speakers and teachers and influencers, I guess, talking about values and the power of values and talking and reflecting on different values. So we're going to go through 31 different values in October, and today's value is about freedom. So let's just take a few moments to reflect what freedom means and perhaps how to cultivate that value in your life and why it's important. So when I think about freedom, I'm reminded of a story by a teacher I used to follow quite closely called Ajahn Brahm. And I've been to his monastery, and it's near Perth. They've got a large monastery in an area called Serpentine. And next door to this monastery, which he calls a monk factory, is a prison. And the prisons used to invite the monks to come and teach the prisoners some mindfulness and meditation and maybe a bit of Buddhism. So they became quite close to one particular monk. So one monk used to go into the prison and used to give them talks. And so the prisoners started chatting to the monk, and the prisoners asked the monk, "So, what's it like in your monastery? Like, what time do you have to wake up?" And the monk says, something like 4 o'clock in the morning. They're like, "What? You have to wake up at 4 in the morning? In this prison, we don't have to wake up until 7 in the morning." Oh my God. But he said, "Yeah, optional. We don't have to wake up at, 4 in the morning. We can wake up earlier if we want." You can work out, but they're like, "Okay, so what do you have for breakfast, lunch, and dinner?" And he's like, "Oh no, we don't get any breakfast." They're like, "What? You don't get any breakfast in your monastery? So when do you eat?" He's like, "Oh, we usually eat around 11 o'clock." "Oh, we get a lovely breakfast here in this prison. We get 3 great meals a day, in fact." He's like, "Oh no, I only get 1 meal a day." And he's like, "What? Only 1 meal a day? And you're a monk?" Oh my goodness. So then they're like, "Okay, so what do you do? Do you just kind of chill out and meditate all day?" And he was like, "Yeah, we do, but we have to do lots of labor work as well because if we can't really afford to get kind of plumbers and builders and stuff. So us monks, we need to work really hard in our monastery just to keep it up going." And they're like, "Oh my God, we don't need to do that." So anyway, what do you do in the evenings? What do you have for dinner? He's like, "Oh no, there's no dinner." And then I guess you have to meditate in the evening too. He's like, "Yeah, pretty much." "What about TV? Do you get to have to watch any TV?" They're like, "No, no television, no entertainment." "What about playing football or other games?" He was like, "No, not really permitted to do that either." They're like, "Oh my God." And then they were so in the moment and they'd so forgotten where they were. They're like, "Oh my God, your monastery sounds really tough. Why don't you come and stay with us?" So the prisoners thought the monastery was so bad that it would be that he would feel better if he was actually staying in the prison rather than the monastery. And this actually gets you thinking about what is the difference between freedom and not having freedom because of this monk in this monastery. Uh, he didn't feel like he was in a prison. He was having a good time in his monastery, but it was more strict than the prison. And so, thinking about that, freedom. What is freedom? Is it being forced in a situation, or is it about choice? And I think that was one of his outcomes on freedom. So freedom is about whether you want to be somewhere or not. The monk was in the monastery and he wanted to be in that monastery. He was happy in that monastery, and so he felt free. Whereas the prisoners, although it may not have been as strict, they didn't want to be there, and so is the sense of having lost their freedom. So the freedom isn't so much the situation that you're in, but it's to do more with the way we see it and if we want to be there or not. I remember another story. This might be more of an ancient story. Again, it's a bit of a Buddhist one, where a very high level monk was falsely accused of something and sent to prison for 10 years or so. And he actually enjoyed his time more in the prison than he did when he was in his monastery too, because of he had to do so much service and he was working so hard when he was in this monastery. But when he was in the prison, he was able to relax and do lots of his meditation, and he felt really free. So yeah, let's take a few moments to think about what does it mean to be free and what is freedom, and is it about the situation that you're in, or is it about learning to want the situation that you're in? So can you be satisfied with your circumstances, and then you can be free. Whereas if you feel you want something different, then you can feel um, the opposite of freedom, I guess. So that's the first reflection for me. And then there's this whole concept of outer freedom and inner freedom, which I find really interesting. Whether we're free on the outside, that's particularly obvious, and we value our freedoms. But what does it mean to be free in a way? If we feel that we are commanded by our thoughts, if you think about it, this is a really interesting one. Our thoughts, we put our thoughts into words, we string them together into a sentence. And some people say that you can get sentenced, just like when you go to prison, you're sentenced to prison. The sentences in your mind can actually be a sentence for you. Sentences like, I'm not good enough, or I can't do that, or I don't look good enough, or I can't do this, or I can't do that. All these limiting thoughts that we have. At the moment, I guess if people like exploring the whole concept of winter, as in the Northern Hemisphere, we're approaching winter. You could have a sentence like, I hate winter, or I hate the lockdown, or I hate this, or I hate that. And those sentences, whether they're true or not, can sentence us because of they're a thought in our head, and they can actually be the filter in which we see everything. And no matter how great a situation may be, you wouldn't be able to notice it because of that sentence. So that's another interesting concept, is to see actually what are these sentences in my head, and do I need to be sentenced by them? Maybe they're not quite as true as my mind makes them to be. And so my argument, because I'm a huge fan of this idea of being awareness rather than being our thoughts and our feelings and our sensations, I would say that's the true freedom, to step back into a deeper reality. Call yourself awareness, consciousness, energy, the universe. But when you step back into that bigger picture of your true sense of self, there's a great freedom there, because if you're not sentenced or controlled by the thoughts that pop into your head or the feelings that arise, they will have an effect on you, of course, but you're lucky enough to be able to step back and just reflect a bit and think, hang on a minute, these thoughts will eventually pass. These feelings, yeah, it really doesn't feel good right now, but I know it's not going to last forever. Maybe I could do some journaling, or talk to a friend, or do some exercise, or just let it pass. Watch some YouTube or something, and it will pass over time. So it doesn't have to define me. So there's some thoughts about freedom and what freedom means to me, and I'd be very fascinated to hear your reflections. What does it mean to be free? What is outer freedom? And with all this idea about lockdown that we hear a lot of, and people not being able to travel, for example, or do things they would normally like to do, there's that restriction of the outer freedom. But can it lead to a greater inner freedom? I know some, when I was trying to buy some spiritual type books on Amazon, I noticed a lot of them were sold out. So there's lot of interest in reading spiritual books right now. There's been a whole lot more creativity that people hadn't engaged in. I went to an art shop the other day, and they'd run out of materials because people were so interested in buying art stuff. So when one outer freedom gets restricted, maybe that gives an opportunity for us to discover more inner freedom, because it gets us to stop running around and traveling so much, and taking some time to think, hang on a minute, what's life all about? What is freedom? Who am I? What am I doing? And so it gets people thinking a little bit more deeper. So there could be some benefits in that way, that perspective too. Someone saying, I like fascinating, this idea of being sentenced by our thoughts. Yeah, it's interesting that they use that word, sentencing, isn't it? Like someone's been sentenced to a certain prison, and we get sentenced. I wonder what the root meaning of the word is as well. It'd be good to look up the etymology of sentenced. Right, well, thanks a lot for listening in. Today's the 1st of October as well, so we've started a new thing in our daily mindfulness club. So usually I do my daily mindfulness club teach a meditation, then I come here for some free content. But we actually started it today. So as it's the 1st of October, we're going to be going through each letter of the alphabet actually and reflecting, and I'm guiding a meditation. So today was all about awareness and exploring the concept of awareness. So if you do want to join in a daily meditation every morning, then you're welcome to do that too. We're going through the alphabet of mindfulness. So maybe the next today or the next day or two would be a good time to join in, and you can listen to the first couple of recordings if you miss them. In fact, you can listen to all of them in the form of recordings, and that's a nice way of connecting with the group too. Wonderful. Well, thanks a lot for listening. Thank you for joining the Values Challenge, and I look forward to learning from you as we go through each of the values. So today was freedom. What does freedom mean for you? How can you practice outer freedom? And even more interestingly for me, how do you cultivate inner freedom? Thanks for watching. Have a great day, and bye for now.